Last week, we talked with candidate Traci Park. Tonight, we're talking with her opponent, Erin Darling. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. A lot to talk about. We booked you initially to talk about homelessness, but something else happened in the last day and a half. Let's talk about the scandal involving Nury Martinez, Kevin De Leon, Gil Cedillo. I know you've called for all three of them to resign after these comments came out, Nury making many racist comments. Where do you think we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, first off, we have to call it out, the racism, the homophobia, the anti-indigenous sentiment. I mean, it's just unacceptable, it's cruel, and so I've called for Nury to resign, but all three need to resign. I mean, and I think it's going to happen, but it's just unacceptable in this culture of City Hall that's just corrupt and bigoted.
Well, and that gets to the bigger question of, like, what's going on at City Hall? That they're having this conversation in the process of trying to draw council districts. We saw Mark Ridley Thomas is now facing, criminal charges potentially. We saw Jose Huizar with facing criminal charges. What's going on in LA City Hall? And if you get there, how do you change it?
It's a great question. First off, power is concentrated in too few hands, and corporate developers have too much power. I think there's too often a pay-to-play in politics, and that has influenced too many policies in City Hall. And also, let's be real, like, there's too much backroom dealing. And it's significant to point out that Nury and Gil Cedillo endorsed my opponent.
And you've been endorsed by Mike Bonin, who they were mocking during this. Janice Hahn, who used to be on the city council, now is a member of the LA County Board of Supervisors, suggested that she thinks that Mike Bonin should be the temporary president of this city council until December. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't, that's not my decision to make, but I do think our thoughts have to be with him. The cruelty directed at his child is totally unacceptable. And also, this is in a context of a lot of negativity with the failed recall. And the failed recall was led by my opponent.
The failed recall of Mike Bonin, for some people. When some people hear recall, they may think Newsom or Gascon.
Sure.
Mike Bonin was facing a recall that did not qualify for the ballot, much like the Gascon recall did not qualify for the ballot. Okay, so let's talk about where we go from here when it comes to homelessness.
Sure.
Clearly, there's a problem in Venice. Clearly, there's been some progress in getting people off the boardwalk, but they've been moved to other areas in Venice as well.
Yeah.
We know what Mike Bonin has been doing in terms of his policy. Are you sort of a continuation of that? Do you change that in some way? How do you see things?
I'm born and raised in Venice. I'm raising my 3-year-old in Venice. So it's crucial that we have a safe neighborhood. And I think we do that by focusing on what works, which is getting people off the streets and inside where they can get care and services that they need, as opposed to the status quo of the city, which is just shutting down one place and shuffling them to another street corner. I don't think the answer is shuffling people from one side of the 405 to the next, or closing down Centennial Park and people go 2 blocks west. That doesn't work. I think we need to focus on a pipeline off the streets to get people inside.
So how exactly do you do that, and what do you do when people say, I don't want to go?
2 parts. One, we have to scale up what works. So convert motels, adaptive reuse of commercial space that's not coming back, modular housing on publicly owned land, getting people access to rooms so that they can come inside. And it's significant to point out that an example of this, the Ramada Inn, where people were able to get inside who were on the streets, my opponent vigorously fought that.
But you know that there are also frustrations with a lot of people in the community that don't want that right by them.
Sure.
So what do you say to residents who are skeptical, who feel like things haven't worked in the past, or those business owners who feel like they have not been protected?
Sure.
What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, this is what the city needs to improve on, and this is why I'm really motivated to run. There needs to be adequate security. There needs to be adequate services. You have to house people. You can't just warehouse people. You can't just say, oh, here's a door, bye. The city needs to do a lot better in making sure that when we are housing people, that they're good neighbors.
And lastly, structurally, if you're able to go onto the city council, there's a good chance now, if these 3 people are gone, and then you go in there, I mean, it's a chaotic time. I mean, this is going to be disarray in Los Angeles for a while, and clear pain in the black-brown relationship in this community, which has already been fraught for decades. What can you do as a member of the city council to try to improve that situation and have us move forward?
Yeah, I mean, this is the question. I think LA's in pain right now. When leadership is explicitly bigoted like this, it trickles down. And I think we need leadership that has stood up to bigotry. You know, I'm a civil rights lawyer. I have a track record of fighting on behalf of marginalized people. And I think we need city leadership that's going to fight for equity so that we all benefit. And I think what we don't need is a perpetuation of the status quo. Like, I think the Nury leadership has failed.
And Marquise Harris Dawson, who's on the city council right now, said that Tracy Park is unfit to serve because of that Nury Martinez endorsement. Do you agree with that?
Not just that. Let's be real. Tracy Park is for sale. She is willing to argue in court that the N-word doesn't constitute harassment. That's what Marquise Harris Dawson was referring to. That makes her unfit for office.
So that's something when she was hired by the city of Anaheim, she said that you as a public defender defended a lot of criminals in the process, and that's part of what being an attorney is. What do you respond to that?
2 points. One is, there's one thing about being a lawyer, but this what disqualifies you if you're going to actually make a defense of racism. Point two, in America, you have a right to a lawyer when facing criminal charges. And I'm proud as a public defender to uphold people's constitutional rights.
All right. We're out of time. I could talk all day.
Yeah.
Erin Darling, thanks for coming in on a big day. We really appreciate it.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Real quickly.
Go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers. That I'll endorse. All right.